The heavy doors to the Alpha King's study remained closed, as afternoon sunlight poured through the tall windows. Scrolls and reports covered Jordan's desk, but his eyes hadn't moved from the same page in several minutes. A hesitant knock broke the silence. "Enter." A palace guard stepped inside and bowed deeply. "My king, Her Grace, the Queen Mother, is outside. She requests an audience." Jordan's hand tightened around the quill before he slowly set it down. After a long silence, he spoke. "Let her in." The guard bowed once more before disappearing. A few moments later, the doors opened again. His mother stepped inside. She looked older somehow. The proud woman who once carried herself like royalty now seemed weighed down by sleepless nights. Her elegant gown could not hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Jordan remained seated. He looked at her, not with anger, not anymore. Only with a coldness she had never seen in him before. It hurt far more than shouting ever could. She took a cautious step forward. "Jordan." He said nothing. Her fingers trembled as she clasped them together. "I have replayed that day in my mind 1,000 times. Still, no answer. Tears gathered in her eyes. "I failed you." Her voice cracked. "I failed Lyra. And I failed my grandson." Jordan lowered his gaze to the papers on his desk. His mother finally broke. "I'm so sorry." The words rushed out between sobs. "I was blinded by pride. I believed I was protecting our family. Our pack." She shook her head. "But all I did was destroy it." She covered her mouth as tears streamed freely down her face. "I know I deserve punishment. I will accept whatever judgment you give me. You may strip me of every title. Send me away. Never allow me inside this palace again. I deserve all of it." She looked at him desperately. "But please." Her voice became barely a whisper. "Don't hate me." Jordan closed his eyes. The little boy inside him wanted to run to her. She had been the one who held his hand after nightmares, the one who taught him to read, the one who stayed awake when he was sick. She had been his entire world long before he became Alpha. That was what made the betrayal hurt so deeply. His mother slowly stepped closer. "If apologizing to Lyra will help, I will kneel before her. If Cordell hates me, I will accept it. If that little boy wishes never to see me again, I will respect his choice." She wiped her tears with trembling fingers. "I only ask for one thing. Please, don't let me lose my son." Silence filled the room. Jordan finally stood. He walked around the desk until only a few steps separated them. His mother searched his face for even the smallest sign that her son was still there. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, painfully quiet. "I've always believed honesty was the only thing a king could never afford to lose." His throat tightened. His next words almost refused to come. "I can't lie to you." His voice cracked. A tear escaped despite his efforts. "I don't know how." His mother's heart broke. Jordan looked directly into her eyes. "I don't forgive you." The words landed like a blade. "Not today." He swallowed hard. "And perhaps not for a long while." Another tear rolled down his cheek. "But," he managed the smallest nod, "I believe one day I will." His mother began crying all over again, not because she had been forgiven, but because he had left the door open. Jordan took a slow breath, forcing himself to remain composed. He looked at the woman he still loved, the woman who had also shattered his heart. His emerald eyes glistened. Then, with all the strength he had left, he whispered, "Leave, mother." She stood frozen for a heartbeat. Then she bowed her head, not to her king, to her son. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the study. The doors closed softly behind her. Jordan remained standing in the middle of the room. The silence returned. He pressed both hands against the edge of his desk, lowered his head, and allowed himself to cry. In the weeks that followed, Jordan restored every servant who had been wrongfully dismissed. The healers were welcomed back with honor, and new laws ensured no one would ever again suffer in silence. Jordan didn't return the next day, or the day after that. A full week passed before Lyra heard another knock on her cottage door. When she opened it, Jordan stood there, dressed simply in black, without guards, without royal banners, holding a small wooden horse in one hand. His green eyes met hers. "I made this for Cordell." Lyra looked at the toy, then at him. "We don't need your gifts." She started to close the door. "I know." His quiet voice stopped her. "I only wanted to leave it here." He gently placed the little horse on the doorstep before turning away. He never asked to come inside. That evening, Cordell discovered it. His small eyes widened. "Mother." He picked it up carefully. "It looks just like Thunder." Lyra smiled softly. Thunder had been the little wooden horse Cordell's grandfather had carved before he died. She hadn't mentioned it to Jordan. There was no way he could have known. She said nothing. Days became weeks. Sometimes Jordan came carrying books filled with drawings of wolves. Sometimes he brought warm bread from the palace kitchens. Sometimes he brought nothing at all. He simply repaired the crooked fence surrounding the cottage. Another day, he quietly replaced the broken window shutter. Another afternoon, he fixed the leaking roof while rain clouds gathered overhead. Lyra watched him from the window, their eyes clashing every now and then. He never once asked to enter, never once asked for forgiveness. When the work was finished, he simply bowed his head and left. Cordell sometimes pretended not to notice him. One afternoon, curiosity finally won. Cordell wandered closer. Jordan was carving another wolf. Its ears weren't finished yet. The tail looked crooked. Cordell frowned. "It's funny looking." Jordan looked at the carving. A small smile tugged at his lips. "It is." Cordell giggled. A tiny laugh, barely louder than the breeze. Jordan's heart squeezed painfully inside his chest. Without saying a word, Jordan finished carving the little wolf. He looked at it for a moment, then deliberately placed it on the bench between them. He didn't offer it. He didn't ask Cordell to take it. He simply left it there. The little boy glanced at him, then at the wolf. "Is it mine?" Jordan smiled gently. "If you'd like it to be." Cordell picked it up carefully, turning it over in his small hands. His tiny fingers traced the carved ears. He hugged the little wolf against his chest. "I like it." Jordan's smile widened. "I'm glad." Silence settled between them once again. Not awkward. Comfortable. The sun dipped lower behind the trees. Jordan stood, brushing wood shavings from his clothes. "I should go." He turned toward the forest path. Behind him came a small voice. "Will you come tomorrow?" Jordan stopped walking. His shoulders stiffened. For a long moment, he couldn't trust himself to speak. He slowly looked back. Cordell stood in the doorway, clutching the little wooden wolf tightly against his chest. Jordan swallowed hard, his eyes already glistening. His voice almost broke. "If your mother says it's all right." Cordell nodded once. "I'll ask her." Jordan lowered his head for a moment, hiding the tears that had finally escaped. Then he smiled, the smallest, most grateful smile of his life. "I'd like that very much." The little cottage was unusually quiet that afternoon. The only sound was the crackling fire as Lyra stirred a pot of soup hanging above it. Cordell had gone into the village with one of the elderly women to gather herbs, leaving the cottage peaceful for the first time in days. Then came a knock. 3 gentle taps against the wooden door. Lyra frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. Wiping her hands on her apron, she walked over and slowly pulled the door open. Her breath caught. The Queen Mother stood outside, alone. For a heartbeat, fear flashed across Lyra's face. Her fingers instinctively tightened around the edge of the door. The Queen Mother saw it, saw the fear, saw Lyra bury it beneath a calm expression almost immediately. That single moment shattered what remained of her heart. This young woman still feared her, even after everything. Lyra stepped aside politely. "Please come in." The Queen Mother nodded silently and entered the small cottage. Her eyes wandered across the modest room. Simple wooden furniture, a patched blanket folded neatly over a chair, fresh flowers resting in an old clay vase. Lyra gestured toward a chair. "Please, sit." Instead, the Queen Mother slowly lowered herself onto both knees. Lyra's eyes widened. "My queen." She hurried forward in alarm. "What are you doing?" She immediately reached for the older woman's arms, gently helping her back to her feet before anyone outside could possibly see. "You mustn't kneel to me." The Queen Mother looked at her through tear-filled eyes. "I already should have." Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry." The words came out broken. So sorry. I judged you. I humiliated you. I ignored your pain. And because of me, my own son looks at me like a stranger." Her shoulders shook. "I am losing him, Lyra." A sob escaped before she could stop it. "And I don't know how to live with that." Lyra stood quietly. She had imagined this moment many times. She thought she would feel satisfaction, vindication, perhaps even anger. Instead, she only felt sadness. She offered the Queen Mother a small, weary smile. "We all live with the consequences of the choices we make." The words weren't cruel. They were simply true. The Queen Mother lowered her eyes. "I know. I would give anything to take those years back." She reached for Lyra's hands with trembling fingers. "But I cannot. So all I can do is ask you to forgive a foolish old woman." Silence settled between them. The fire crackled softly in the corner. Lyra looked at the woman before her. Not as a queen. Not as the woman who had made her life miserable. Just a mother whose mistakes had cost her almost everything. She took a slow breath. "You hurt me." Her voice was calm, so deeply that there were nights I thought the pain would never leave. The Queen Mother's tears fell faster. Lyra gently squeezed her hands. "But carrying that pain forever would only keep hurting me." A peaceful smile touched her lips. "I forgive you." The older woman stared at her in disbelief. Lyra continued softly. "I won't forget. There are some scars that never truly disappear. But I forgive you." The Queen Mother covered her mouth as quiet sobs escaped. Not loud, not dramatic, just the broken cries of a heart that had finally been shown mercy. She smiled through her tears. "Thank you." The words were barely more than a whisper. "Thank you for giving me something I did not deserve." Lyra simply nodded. The Queen Mother took one last look around the little cottage. She paused at the doorway, then turned back. "I hope," her voice was gentler now, "I hope one day this little cottage becomes too small for all the happiness waiting for it." Lyra smiled. A genuine one this time. "So do I." The Queen Mother returned the smile. Then she quietly stepped outside. The door closed behind her. Lyra remained where she stood, staring at the wooden door for several long moments. She slowly released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Forgiveness, she realized, didn't erase the past, but it finally allowed her to stop living inside it. A month passed. The little cottage no longer felt so lonely. Every few days, Jordan would appear at the front gate, never empty-handed. Sometimes he brought books filled with stories of legendary wolves. Sometimes he arrived carrying fresh pastries from the palace kitchens. Sometimes he came with nothing but a smile. Cordell waited for those visits now. The little boy would race to the window the moment he heard footsteps outside. "He's here." Lyra would pretend not to notice. "Cordell." "You've already asked me 3 times today." "But Mother." His silver-green eyes sparkled with hope. "Can we go to the palace?" Lyra folded another piece of laundry, deliberately avoiding his pleading expression. "You spent all day there yesterday." "But Father said—" He stopped himself. His cheeks turned pink. "Jordan, standing awkwardly near the doorway, looked just as startled. Lyra slowly looked up. Neither of them corrected him. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Only for a few hours. Cordell let out a triumphant cheer before throwing his little arms around her waist. "You are the best." Jordan couldn't help laughing. "I believe that means I've been granted permission." Lyra rolled her eyes playfully. "Don't get used to it." "Never." Yet both of them knew he secretly hoped he would. The days became lighter. Jordan and Cordell were inseparable. They trained together in the palace courtyard, built wooden swords, played hide-and-seek among the palace gardens. Sometimes Jordan would carry the sleepy 6-year-old back to the cottage after sunset because Cordell refused to wake up. The palace servants smiled every time they saw them together. It felt right. Lyra changed too. The walls around her heart slowly disappeared. Not all at once. Brick by brick. One evening, after Cordell had fallen asleep, she and Jordan remained outside the cottage until dawn. There were no secrets left. No lies. No misunderstandings. Only truth. She told him about every lonely birthday, every frightening winter, every night she had cried herself to sleep while comforting their son. Jordan listened, never interrupting, never defending himself. When she finished, he simply whispered, "I'm so sorry." Silence stretched between them. Then Lyra smiled through misty eyes. "I know." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "I forgive you." Jordan closed his eyes. A single tear escaped. "Thank you." Later that same night, he looked at her carefully. "When you're ready, you should come home." She knew exactly what he meant. "The palace." He nodded. "It has always been your place." He quickly added, "But if you never wish to return, I'll understand. I'll respect whatever life you choose." Lyra looked toward the tiny cottage they had built together. Then, toward the distant palace, glowing beneath the moon. She smiled softly. "When the time is right, I'll come." Another week passed. The moon hung full and brilliant over the forest. Jordan carried a sleeping Cordell into the cottage. The little boy barely stirred as Jordan tucked him beneath his blanket, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Good night, little wolf." Cordell smiled in his sleep. Jordan quietly closed the bedroom door. Outside, Lyra sat on the old wooden bench beneath the oak tree. She looked up at the moon. Jordan joined her without saying a word. For several peaceful minutes, neither of them spoke. The cool night breeze carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. Their wolves purred quietly beneath their skin, content, at peace. Then, Lyra felt it. She turned. Jordan was looking at her, not speaking, simply looking. She raised an eyebrow. "What?" He didn't answer. His eyes never left hers. A blush slowly crept across her cheeks. She laughed nervously. "You're being a little creepy." That finally made him smile. "I know, but I can't seem to stop looking at you." Her heart fluttered. Jordan slowly reached for her hand. He paused, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. His fingers gently intertwined with hers. He lifted her hand and pressed the softest kiss against her fingertips. Then another. Then the back of her hand. Lyra's breath caught. The mate bond hummed warmly between them. Jordan searched her eyes. "If this is too soon, I'll wait. As long as you need." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, without a single word, she closed the remaining distance between them. Their foreheads touched. She smiled. So polite. Jordan chuckled softly. "I've learned my lesson." Her fingers slipped gently behind his neck. "Good." She leaned forward first. Their lips met in a slow, tender kiss. There was no desperation, no urgency, only two hearts finally finding their way back to each other. Jordan began to pull away, afraid of asking for too much. Before he could, Lyra's hand rested against his cheek. She drew him back. This time, she kissed him. Longer. Deeper. Their wolves stirred inside them, no longer aching with separation, but rejoicing in reunion. It wasn't the wild, overwhelming pull of instinct. It was the quiet certainty that, after everything they had lost, they had finally come home to each other. Above them, the full moon bathed the little cottage in silver light. The grand mating ceremony was unlike anything the kingdom had ever witnessed. The palace courtyard overflowed with wolves from every corner of the realm. White banners danced beneath the summer breeze. Silver flowers lined the stone aisle. The moon priest raised his hands toward the heavens as the full moon emerged from behind the clouds. Jordan stood proudly in ceremonial black. Beside him, Lyra, beautiful, radiant. The woman who had once entered the palace as nothing more than a servant now stood before the entire kingdom as their rightful Luna. Their fingers intertwined. Neither of them looked away. Not this time. The moon priest smiled. Do you accept one another before the moon goddess? Not only as mates, but as equals. For every lifetime she grants you? Jordan never hesitated. I do. Lyra looked into his eyes. This time, there was no fear, no pain, only peace. I do. A brilliant silver light surrounded them as the mate bond completed itself. Their wolves rejoiced. The entire kingdom erupted into cheers. Cordell laughed so loudly that everyone turned toward him. My mama and papa did it. The crowd burst into warm laughter. Jordan scooped his son into his arms. The three of them stood together beneath the moon. Finally home. The kingdom celebrated until sunrise. Songs echoed through every village. Bonfires burned across the mountains. For years afterward, the people would speak of that night, not because it was the grandest mating ceremony in history, but because it proved that even the deepest wounds could heal. As Jordan, Lyra, and little Cordell begin their new chapter, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for walking this journey with them, and for all the love you've shown this story. It truly means more than you know. Before you go, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to know where our little wolf family is growing around the world. Until we meet again, may the moon protect you, may it guide your path, and may your heart always find its way home.